Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to our next session. I am very excited for this one. And I've got our speakers here. We've got Leslie as well as Missy, and they're going to be doing a session called A Spoonful of Positive. Helps the feedback go down. And we just lost Missy here off
Yeah.
on the screen. So let's see if she pops back in here. She's got the presentation that's going to be coming up here. So hold on one moment, and we'll get her back in here in just 1 second. Let me see. Let me invite her back in here, and then we'll get everything put back on. It's funny how things happen, especially when you're live, right?
Well, and technical difficulties seem to follow us.
Well, that is all good because there's a lot of stuff that happens, but we come from dispatch and we do everything on the fly.
Am I
Here
back?
she is. Yes, there you go.
Okay.
All right. Let's get your presentation back up on the screen there, and then we'll be able to go live. Well, we are live. I mean, you'll be able to
We are,
continue
I
doing
know,
what you're
sorry.
doing. No, you're good. It is
There
all
we go.
good.
All right.
All right, it should pop up here momentarily. All right, here
All
we
right.
go. Take it away, my friends.
All right. Thank you, Ricardo, for having us. We just appreciate this so much and the opportunity to speak with you all today. Interesting, kind of ironic fact is Missy and I plan to do this in the same room and be together. However, I tested positive for COVID on Monday night, and I'm home on oxygen and isolation. So it's kind of ironic that this Dare to Be Great was born out of COVID, and now how many years later, this is my first bout with COVID. So I'm appreciative to be here today, and we'll try to power through this because I'm so excited about it, and I believe it's so much in what Ricardo does. So just a little bit about Missy and I. I'm going to let Missy talk about herself. But we've been with Salt Lake Valley Emergency Communications Center for over about 43 years combined. She has a little bit more time than I do, even though I'm older. I started my career a little bit late in life here, but it's been a good career and I've enjoyed being at VEC. So we are the biggest PSAP in the state of Utah, and we're very proud to be here representing the state of Utah. Yes, we got snow this last night and into today, and I-15 has been closed and caused a big hubbub because we had a tanker rollover with a bunch of crude oil. So it's been a busy morning in dispatch, I'm sure, but I'm here in my lovely little home enjoying the quietness of it. So a little bit about myself. I started out as a dispatcher, not really knowing what I was getting into, that this career just filled a need that I needed to fill in my family at the time, because my husband had welded for many years and went back to school, and we needed a job that had insurance. And we'd run a home business with my mom and my sister. And so this was kind of I jumped into it in a way different way than most people do. Seen the ad for it in the newspaper, go figure, newspapers don't even exist hardly anymore. But anyway, applied, and I'm still here after all of those years, even though being told during training, you're never going to make it by one of my trainers. I proved her wrong. I'm still there, and she's long gone and been long gone for a lot of years. So I was able to prove her wrong, but from being a call taker, I went to the police end of the room and learned how to dispatch police, because we dispatch for all three disciplines: police, fire, and medical. And so I went and learned the police side of the room. When it was possible to test and apply for supervisor, I did so and was later promoted to supervisor. And then about 10 years come December, our leadership at the time made the decision to change the supervisor's role and change it up from being floor supervisors to having some specific floor supervisors and some supervisors that were specialty assignments. And one of the specialty assignments was quality assurance. And I got put in, or voluntold, to do quality assurance. And at that time, we were with another vendor than we are now. And we had an endowment from them. And the goal was to get triple accredited in all three disciplines, and we needed to do that. And so it was very much a very high pressure situation to get QA started, for one, because we dabbled in QA as supervisors, but nothing really ever official. And we had to take our people from kind of being able to do what they wanted to do to living in those strict, rigid requirements of the other vendor's protocol. And so I am happy to say that we were successful in getting our agency to triple accreditation and even achieving reaccreditation before our management changed again. And right as COVID happened, kind of as well, when that rolled over. And our new director, Scott Ruff, was very familiar with APCO and Telecom and their product. And we started investigating it, and we made the switch to APCO and Telecom. We went live March 1st of 2021, and it has been a great fit for us. Our fire chiefs and our police chiefs wanted us to do something different, and they bought off on this APCO and Telecom, and we couldn't be more happy. We are very, very pleased with the product. And one last thought about quality assurance. While I was voluntold to do quality assurance, I wouldn't have been able to stay here doing quality assurance for 10 years if I didn't and wouldn't have found a passion for it. And I didn't really realize that I had a passion. You know how sometimes you just go through life paddling the boat and just keep going, and you don't really realize those internal feelings. And what happened is I had an employee that had been with us for a couple of years during the push for accreditation and to stay accredited. And she had left us and went to another agency out of state. Her family had moved, and it was the situation like that. Well, things changed, and she came back to our organization. And like I think her first or second day back, I ran into her into the hall, and I said, "Oh, hey, Tanya, I'm so happy you're back." And she's like, "Oh, I'm so happy to be back too." And she said, "Are you still doing quality assurance?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm there. Yep, that's me." And she goes, "Oh, you have a passion for that, and you are so good at it." And that's when I was like, kind of like had to like stop and think a minute and be like, she's right. I really do have a passion for it. And the passion comes from when the other vendor switched to adding strength-based feedback to our reviews and kind of went away from the nitpickiness, even though it is still very stringent and rigid. That difference was when we started strength-based feedback and when we started looking for the good in the calls, because it's easy to find the bad things. They stick out. That's simple to find those things, but it's much harder to find those good things and make sure that you're commenting on those to your employees, because that's what they need to hear. We are so in an industry that is so negative just by the nature of it, that add quality assurance onto it with negativity can even make it worse. And so her enlightening me has made me realize that I really do have a passion, and I'm happy that I can share this with you guys today and some of the things that we have found that are working for us. While I cannot take credit for any of these methodologies, they all are part of what we've put into play and what we have found to be doing good things for our agency and helping our people not be afraid of quality assurance and keeping us away from being the villains and despised and, oh, they're in the room, hide, run the other way, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Missy and let her talk about herself, and just say I'm so excited to be here today.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks to Ricardo and Dare to Be Great for allowing us to present this information in our program. Leslie and I are so proud of the things we've put together and are so excited to share this and hope that you can just take a little bit from what we've learned building our Q programs and working with our employees, and hope that you can take it back to your center and even learn something from it. I've worked at Valley Emergency for going on 25 years in March. I started just like Leslie as a call taker and moved my way up. I did a little bit of police dispatching, but my passion and love was the fire dispatching side. So I moved to that realm and That was where most of my dispatching was from. But right into my career, right at 5 years, I promoted and became a supervisor. So most of my career here has been as an operations supervisor. So pretty much 19 years of my career here has been as the operations supervisor. I've done pretty much everything in that realm. I've done scheduling and queue and all of those things. And so I've had the ability to like learn a lot about the dispatch center and how it works. And so I've had a lot of opportunities that way. I got kind of into the queue because I was an operations supervisor. When they made the change, I got directed straight to operations. And as I saw the queue program develop and grow, I really didn't understand it. And so I didn't really, because of my not understanding it, I didn't like it. And so I was one of the complainers probably and criticizers of the program. And I've always been taught that if you don't have a solution, then you're part of the problem. So when the opportunity came open for a Q position, I saw the opportunity for me that I needed to be part of the solution. I also saw that Leslie had put a lot of time and effort into the program and working to get our center accredited, and she hadn't had a lot of support. She had done a really great job in doing that, but some of her Q partners hadn't done a lot of the work. She'd done a lot of it herself. And I felt that, to be fair, if I wanted to make the Q program better, that to understand it, I needed to get in there and be part of the solution, but also to help give her an equal share in that. So that's why I applied to be the supervisor. I didn't really know what I was going to get myself into when I started the Q program, and I had a lot of learning to do. But while I didn't learn a passion for Q, I learned a lot of understanding and became very respectful of what Q is and how important it is in the center, the operations center, and why it's so important that it is functional and that it be a good program for your employees. And through that, I've created not only such a great friend in Leslie, but we have really been able to develop such great relationships with our employees and create a positive program for our organization. And so I think that as we move forward and as we've gone with APCO and we're rebuilding our Q program, it's going to just develop and blossom and be an amazing thing. Recently, I was able to be offered the job to be a training coordinator and supervisor. And so I'm so excited to do that because training is my passion. And I love being right there at the beginning of an employee's career and to mentor them and bring them up. And I love the relationship that I have with Leslie because what we're going to be doing is building Q right from the beginning and giving quality training and bringing it right into quality service. And so that's our major goal now that we've got this program developed, is to bring it right in from the beginning and to teach our employees the excitement of doing a good job and giving perfect quality service from the beginning. So I thank you for letting us be here, and we hope that you get a little bit of something out of this program today.
Thanks, Missy. Okay, let's move forward with Spit Spot with our little Mary Poppin theme. Let's go to our next slide. This is a little parody on the song, and I'm just going to go ahead and play the recording now.
Every column must be reviewed. There is an element of excellence. You find the strength and snap. The job's a game. And every review you undertake becomes a piece of cake. Feed forward, strength base. It's very clear to see. Better. Spoonful of positive helps the feedback go down. The feedback go down. The feedback go down. Just a spoonful of positive helps the feedback go down in the most impactful way.
You can
So as
thank me. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
You can thank me later for having that song in your head all day long.
Forever. As Leslie and I looked at revamping our program and building our new program, some of the things that we looked at was One, we wanted to make sure it was a program that wasn't a disciplinary program. So we took the discipline process out of QA. So as we do quality assurance, if something comes up that's a disciplinary thing, it goes straight to the watch commander. So anything that's like an address error that's found or customer service, that goes up and gets sent to the watch commanders or to the supervisors to handle. We are basically coaches and mentors. We wanted our program to be positive feedback where our employees feel confident that the information that we give is going to be to help them to improve their career and do a call better. We wanted it to be that they were open to be able to come to us, because for a while what it was they kept saying to us, I think that you sit in your office and all that you do is look for those calls that we do terribly. You never find those calls that I do good. And so we wanted to turn that around. So the first thing we did was to take out the discipline process and became a coaching and mentoring. The next thing we wanted to do was make it a positive interaction between us and the employee, and make it a learning experience. So we always tried to find ways to help them improve and learn from the mistakes that are made. And so we came up with these 3 methods to help them learn from that. They're called feed forward, strength-based feedback, and ask, tell, ask. These aren't our methods. They're things that we found through study and research, and they're what work best for our agency.
So I'm going to talk now about the feedback forward. I have my book here. There's a picture of it on the slide. And this is a methodology that's based on an idea that people develop best when they focus their energy and attention on a future that they can change rather than a past that they cannot. The book is by Joe Hirsch, and the methodology is also part of Marshall Goldsmith's methodologies. This is really interesting information, and I couldn't, when I was reading the book, if you'll notice on my book, I've got all these pages marked and I have highlighted all over it because there are so many things that I just kept going through the book and think, well, this applies to quality assurance. This applies to what I do in quality assurance, because it's really about writing evaluations and yearly evaluations and things like that. But it was like, there's so many points in this that apply to what I do every day as a QA that I need to take little portions out of this and work forward in helping my employees understand. Because like, by the nature of QA, it's not timely. Like, we haven't figured out yet, that's my goal someday. And at that point, maybe I'll be able to retire, that I can do yesterday's calls today and meet with them either today or tomorrow and not be weeks or behind or even days behind. Because by the time I finally get to that call taker with the information, time has passed. And so it's just the past. Like, I can't change it, right? So what I need to do is find a way that I can affect the future and not have them feel so beat up about what happened that that's where their brain is stuck up in the fight or flight mode. Like, okay, well, I know I'm better than that, or I don't believe what you said, or whatever that's going through their brain as you're talking to them. So there's just so many points in this book that I just was like so incredible to me. The quote, in the words of the author, and this really kind of sums it all up, feed forward lets us dump the past, embrace the future, and change the way that we lead and live. And I think this can even be, all of these methodologies that we talk about today are not only quality assurance related, they can also go into any kind of other, like training, CTO, your home life. Some of them I use on my husband and my kids. They just don't know that, kind of thing. So these are all the good things that you can keep. So by the time we get to that review, many days have gone past, and it's just that one call in that one moment of time. They might have done 100 other calls perfectly, and you just happen to find that one bad call, because that's what they accused us of always doing, was finding that one bad call, right? And for our TCs, there's no movie magic. There's no turning back the clock. There's no retakes, no rewind. And many times, it's like way too late. But we still know that behavior happened, and we still need to know how to affect it for the future, because we don't want it to keep happening. When we allow them to become habits, then we make it super hard for them to do it correctly when we don't ever say what they're doing wrong. So there's a kind of brain process that happens when you tell people about their mistakes. It kind of brings this learned helplessness and a frustration. And it's basically due to the fact that it's rooted in the past. So had we told them sooner, they may have handled it differently, right? We've created that potential for the bad habit to happen. How long does it take to break a habit? Studies are showing that it takes at least 10 weeks to break a habit, and that's when you replace it with another habit. So when we're trying to replace that maybe bad habit that we've let unintentionally happen, we need to make sure that we're giving them a tool to replace that bad habit so that they can move forward with it and then not could be continuing happily. When we give it to them, when we deliver the feedback in the past, it's judgmental. It heightens their sensitivity, it puts them on this high alert kind of thing. And even just like an innocent observation can feel like harsh criticism. Your brain kind of goes in this perilous and it's trying to think of, well, what can I do? What should I do? How do I explain myself? Whatever. It kind of goes through this whole big thought process of like, what am I going to do kind of thing. And so it's trying to kind of figure in how to help that employee get past one little thing that's an innocent observation that we know that they need to fix without putting them into, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to just have to quit. And I did have an employee tell me that when we were going for accreditation with the other vendor, I'm just going to have to quit. I can't do this. I can't be under this scrutiny. And at that time, I thought, honey, you've been under scrutiny for all the years that you've worked here, because the media and our agencies, if they hear you do something horrible on a call, they're going to be a way worse to you and crucify you more than I will ever do. I am going to bring you in and be nice and help you and give you some tools to fix it. But we actually had people that ended up quitting when we started a full-on quality assurance program because they were, one, afraid of it, and they were worried about being scrutinized and not understanding that we would give them the tools to help fix it. And I will admit, in the beginning, we did not have the tools that I have today, 10 years later. So the past can't be changed. The future can be affected. Golly, I apologize. And the way that you meet with the people, that can change their way for it. So when we gain that understanding of how traditional feedback just automatically kind of puts us in this funk, right? Every time you're called to the principal's office, right? You go back to your school days of thinking, okay, what did I do wrong? Like every time my manager says, hey, I need to talk to you, I go through my mental list of what could it be? What have I done wrong? Instead of, hey, what did I do right? Maybe she's talking to me about something I've done really well. I mean, we're geared to that. We've learned it. It's been inbred in us through school and through all of that stuff. So it's important that we help our employees, especially with these just one moment in time quality reviews, that we make them understand that we're here to help them and that we're here to make them look towards the future instead of the past. Yes, that happened. And yes, we can get on with it. I had kind of a situation where we had, and it was back when we were with the other vendor, where I had done a call review and he had gotten the incorrect chief complaint. Well, you guys know, if you're with that vendor, that automatically gives you a non-compliant on the call, right? But the rest of the call was spot on, perfect, everything great, kind of thing. Was perfect kind of a situation. And so I went out to talk to him and I said, hey, I just want to talk to you about that call. And he's like, yeah, I understand I got the chief complaint wrong, but I did so many other great things in that call. And I said, right. And all those other things that you did great, I want you to keep doing. And this chief complaint choice is an easy fix. Here's how to fix it. And here's the clues to listen to and the clues that the caller gave you that you inadvertently missed on this call. It's a whole different experience than, okay, non-compliant, I'm doing bad. I'm going to bring the center down. We're going to lose our accreditation, kind of thing. Pam, I like your comment. Accept it, correct it, and move on. My son played in the NFL, and he had an NFL coach that basically had that same quote that he would tell him. You accept your mistake, you correct it and you move on and you leave it in the past, because that's where it needs to be, in the past. There's another big part of quality assurance that I'm going to talk about, and that's raters variability. So Missy and I worked really hard to become a team so that we didn't have them coming through the back door. Hey, did you know Missy scored me down on this? Or, hey, did you know Leslie scored me down on this? If we ever had a call that was going to be controversy, and you guys all know that there's calls out there that are controversial to your employee, right? We would get together. I would say, hey, you got to come listen to this, or should say the same to me. We'd listen to the call together, and we had a united front. So when that employee came knocking on the door and wanted it changed or didn't agree with what one of us had to say, we had each other's backs, and we could say, no, we agree on that together, and this is how it's going to be. Now, I understand your feelings, and let's talk about it and see if we can resolve it. Sometimes we'd have to hold our ground, and sometimes we would give a little bit, because it's not about winning the battle. It's about the war that you're facing, right? So sometimes you have to give a little. So that's one of the things that we learned on raters variability. So if you have more than one Q in your agency, make sure that you get on the same page and work together as a team, because without it, your employees will smell that weakness and sniff it out and crucify you. It's just that simple. So where do we start? Missy, do you want to flip me to the next slide? We need to make sure that we're thinking in the future tense, looking forward instead of looking back. Instead of managing their performance, we want to develop their talent. We're having an issue. We'll fix it. I can still talk while she's doing that. Instead of managing performance, we want to develop their talent. We want to strengthen their significance and help our telecommunicators find the right mix of passion, purpose, and performance. Because we all know when they came in and interviewed for our agency that they had that passion. They wanted to come in and help people. I say in the new hire class, I'm pretty sure there's not one of you that raised your hand and said, hey, I want to be on the news, featured on the news for something I did wrong, And so that's a good thing about that is making sure that they know that we're there to help them. And I've lost my whole train of thought. So I'm going to get back on. I'm trying to silently help Missy in my brain and talk, and it's not working very well.
No, you're good. I was going to say, all you needed to do is to get the cursor back onto the presentation there.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
We're learning. It's good.
Yeah. No, you're good.
I needed a drink of water too, so there you go.
Perfect.
So there we go.
Sorry.
So in the book, he has a section called the repair. And I've just taken little areas out of the book that is in that section of repair. And my acronyms does not come up to repair at all, just so that you know that. So amplifiers are amplifiers versus silencers. So silencers tend to be closed and negative. If you guys want to throw any examples up in the chat of what you think is a silencer, go ahead and do that as we're talking. Silencers are closed and negative. They feature words like but, never, don't, aren't. Essentially, the language that is restrictive, dismissive, and disapproving. It's like, never, ever do that again kind of thing. It's like, I'm going to use the example of just a simple thing of the phone number not verified. So when you give that information and you write that in your review and you say, you didn't dare verify the phone number, right? You put that on them with the you. So that's going to be a silencer, or it can be an amplifier, and we'll talk about the difference. You didn't verify the phone number. If you don't verify the phone number, we may never, ever be able to call that caller back. Now, I don't know about you guys, but 99.999999999% of the time, we get a good phone number on our Annie Alley screen, right? many times if we're calling back on a cell hang up, we're calling back the number that showed up on the anti-alley screen, right? So we're making this really horrible thing out of something that was just simple. And so a lot of times people like to say, you spoke to the caller in a really nice tone of voice, but when the caller got agitated, you yelled at the caller, and that was inappropriate. So, whenever you use that but word, it's like they're just waiting for well, what did I, it negates whatever you said good in front of it. So silencers and amplifiers are things that you want to make them, to encourage them, to make them better. They're more open and positive. They communicate in a way that is flexible and encouraging and agreeable. The example of when to use the you is when you're telling them something that they did really well. So when you spoke to that caller who was hysterical, you remained extremely calm. You used repetitive persistence, and you were able to gain her trust and confidence. And for that, you got help started quickly, and it ended up making a difference to this caller. Like, not a difference in the outcome, because we don't always know that, but it did make a difference to the caller, because then she was able to speak to you in a manner that was positive. So that is sums up amplifiers and silencers. The next topic is stick to simplicity. So sometimes when we're giving feedback, it's knowing how much to give and allowing the person to focus on one specific big ticket item versus like, here's everything you did wrong. And I know that with the other vendor, and if you're going for accreditation, I don't want to mess up anybody's accreditation kind of thing. I know that you cannot put those things in that was happened. You just need to make sure that you're putting them in as a fact, like the phone number was not verified, rather than you didn't verify the phone number, so that documentation is there. But then when you're coaching and working with them, you take it back to the simplicity of, okay, what is the big fix here? What is the most important thing? If it's addressing, we all know that if we don't have addressing right, that goofs the crazy stuff up, right? So if we don't have the right addressing, that is something that's a big ticket item, and we want to work with them and make sure that they understand sorry, I'm shaking Leslie, I'm scrolling. I shouldn't watch my picture because that's when I get in trouble. By the way, I like to scroll, so I apologize that I do that. It's also like, so when we give them too much stuff, it gives them this decision fatigue. It's like, well, where do I start? I got this whole list of things to do. Where do I even start? So you want to make sure that you get their buy-in and start with the big ticket items, the things that are most important to fix first. Or depending on that call taker or telecommunicator's personality, you may want to start on the little things, unless it's a critical item. Like an addressing thing is critical. Not giving CPR instructions correct as verbatim is critical. Those critical things that you have to address, make sure you're addressing those. But if you can, maybe just focus on a few small things too. It kind of depends on what your telecommunicator and their attitude is. There's also another important part of this is to remember who your audience is. If your telecommunicator is brand new, they're going to need more guidance and more attention than if it's a telecommunicator that's been there for a while. You need to match your level of years of experience to them to understanding, because explaining to the telecommunicator, it's important to ask what city. We have to, in our agency, ask what city they're in, because we serve multiple agencies and some addresses work exactly the same or sound the very same. Vine Street and Fine Street, both very similar on the phone kind of thing. And so that's a way that we catch address errors. So if that's something that they've done, then we can say by asking what city will help prevent the address error in the future, because then that will give you the correct jurisdiction. So it's important that you kind of explain what happened too, but it also helps with our new hires in helping them. Like if we have them all missing the same thing, then I can go back to Missy and say, hey, we're seeing issues with this when it comes to training. and that there's something that we're saying or giving to the person that we're not communicating it effectively if we see it happening. So it's important to stick to simplicity when you're writing your feedback. The next thing is authentic. People are not afraid of getting authentic feedback. We're afraid of getting negative feedback. So when you simply say the phone number was not verified or CPR instructions were not given verbatim, you're stating it as a fact. You're not stating it, you're not making it negative. Turning it into the negative is you didn't give CPR instructions verbatim and you missed giving the correct rate. So this patient possibly died because you didn't do it right? That is negative feedback. Authentic feedback is saying what the behavior was, but leaving all of the judgment off of it. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't say, next time, make sure that you follow it precisely so that you don't forget to give the rate at the right to the caller. So we're not afraid of authentic feedback. We're just afraid of negative feedback. The next thing is encourage results. There's a study out there that says when learning remains passive and theoretical, sorry, I can't say that today, the transfer rate is 0%. So how do we combat that? We have to figure out ways to combat that. Like today, with you guys just sitting here watching me, the transfer rate is going to be hard. You know, you've got to put some of it into it and to get a part back. But if we demonstrate, we have them practice, and we help them with coaching, we can increase the rate to 95%. So we want to encourage results. And when we're encouraging results, we want the employees to become actively involved. I don't go into my reviews when I'm doing an in-person review with them with what I want them to do. I have ideas in my mind that I can guide them to that, but 99% of the time they already picked it out. And sometimes they even pick it out before we even listen to it. So we want them to be actively involved. We want to help them set a large goal with small steps along the way to encourage the results and change their behavior if that's necessary. And if they're doing great, we want to keep them doing great. I had a dispatcher who had dispatched for lots of years at a county PSAP before they came over to ours, and they never dispatched medical or fire calls or took medical calls. And so she was doing a refresh training with taking medical calls, and she got a CPR. She actually had 3 CPR calls in one day, bless her heart. But one of her CPR calls was this elderly gentleman that said, I came to my sister's house to take her to lunch, and I found her in her recliner, and I think she's dead. And she went through the process, and she got to the point where she said, do you think she's beyond help? And he's like, no, I don't think so. Well, he couldn't get her out of the recliner, so it was a power recliner. So he was in the process of laying the recliner back. She was in the process of giving instructions, and he says to her, I'm retired military. I had CPR training. And without missing a beat, she said to him, that's great. I'm going to walk you through CPR until help gets there, and just started right into the instructions. It went fabulously. And let me tell you, we have so many employees that have, and it's, I think, a hurdle we're always going to try to get over, that they feel like if somebody has CPR training, that they can kind of just take a backseat role and not give the instructions. And so I made sure that I sang this call taker, she's actually one of our CTOs, praises about how she just didn't miss a beat and went right into that's great. I'm going to help you until they get there, and created a partnership with this caller. I'm thinking in my mind, if he's retired military, how many years has it been since he had that training, right? So it was great. Encourage results. That's my thoughts on encourage results. So the next thing is refine. So refine is create a partnership with them. Until we get them involved in the process, our feedback will be just what it is, talk without transfer. Missy had a great point of we were writing all this feedback and sending it out, and we never knew if anybody was even reading what we were writing. And we were doing all this really great stuff, but we didn't know. And so we want to make sure that you create a partnership, that you're checking in with your people. Missy and I, and now I have a new partner, Trevicus, and I'm excited to have her. We try to go out on the floor. We're right now under construction, so we're in 3 separate rooms at our agency. Yes, it's a mess. It is. Yes, I'm going to nod my head to that. But we try to walk out to the floor and meet with employees and just say hi. And so many questions do we answer and help and have that interaction with them where they're no longer afraid for us to come out and meet with them. At the time when we were going for accreditation, we created this program called Flamingo. And it was the employees named it Flamingo, but it was a way that the employee, if they didn't feel confident about a call, they could send it to us as QA, an email that says, hey, I want to Flamingo this call, and send us the call number so that Missy and I could listen to it and give them feedback. If it happened to come through that random process that we had to do for that other vendor, we kept it, of course, but the employee didn't know that we kept it and had to keep it. They just had that comfort in knowing that we were helping them become better. And so that's kind of the way that we skirted that, but also gave that employee that power to be like, hey, I'm just not sure about this call. Please listen to it, rather than hoping and waiting that it never came through the quality assurance review, because I'm sure some of our people felt that way. But we found now that we have other people that are not like that. And our new people that are coming in, they'll send us questions all the time. Hey, what about this? Listen to this call. We had a call taker, unfortunately, took a guy that shot himself while he was on the phone with us last month. And the call taker reached right out to me and said, hey, can you listen to this call? This is the first time I ever had one of these, and I'm just not sure if I did it right. And so I was able to listen to the call and give him back that peace of mind. No, there wasn't anything that you could have done differently. This gentleman had his mind made up. There was nothing that you could have done or said that would have changed what his behavior was. You could just hear it in his tone of voice right from the get-go. So we want to make sure that our people know that we're here to help them refine and develop their skills and get better. We don't want them to be the news feature. They're going to be the news feature, we want them to be the news feature for the good. We recently, I want to say maybe 6 months ago, had a gentleman that went into cardiac arrest at a Walmart, and 2 bystanders called in, got one of our call takers. We immediately got CPR started, and he survived the event, and we were featured on the news for that. So that's the news features that we want. It's when we do great work. Missy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, no, I still have to talk longer. Sorry. Okay, I'm just a little scattered today. So one of the things that's in the book, and I think everybody's kind of knowing it, and life has kind of switched around. We all have heard about the feedback sandwich, and it was really kind of now become the, sandwich, where you do good, bad, good, and the call taker or telecommunicator kind of walks away with, well, I did really good. My bad must have not been that bad, because then I did really good again, kind of thing. And so it's worked for a lot of years, but it's no longer the preferred method of giving and writing feedback. There's this new method out there, and I don't know if it's that new or not, but it's newer to me. And that's the wrap. And it's context. What's the problem? So what is the issue of it? Observation. What has happened, right? Emotions. How does this make you feel? The value. What do you want to have happen? And then suggest. Is there something I can do to help you? And it all wrapped up together instead of a sandwich kind of thing. There's some other thoughts going on where you have the paleo diet. That is your context. That's when there might have been a call that the only thing that you could find right with it is that you got help started, right? Unfortunately, we have some of those. Hopefully they're few and far between, but Unfortunately, it does happen. I can say that not just in my own organization. When we were with the other vendor, I worked as a contractor doing quality assurance on the weekend for their program. And so that was a good experience for me because it enlightened me to the fact that not only is it happening in my agency, it's happening in all of the other agencies that I see or listen to, actually not see, but listen to. So the paleo is just giving them, hey, this is what happened. And there's no way to sugarcoat it. And sometimes we're going to have those hard conversations, unfortunately. And maybe that's when they get shown the way to the door, and that maybe that this job wasn't for them and isn't going to be for them if they can't change their behavior down the road. And the last is pizza. And I quite like this method because if you think about the good things that you're finding of your call, that's your toppings. And there's all kinds of pizza, right? There's your deep dish, where your context, where the things that were maybe not done correctly is kind of thick, right? But you still have some good toppings on it, right? And then you have your regular, where your context is like a little bit, but you still got good toppings, right? It's about an even mix. Then you have the thin. That's where your telecommunicators are humming along, doing really great, when there might be just one little thing, but some really, really, really good toppings. And I love now that they've come out with keto pizza, right? Which is what? Just all the good. That's all the good toppings. That's one of those calls that's a good job, but rather than just saying good job, you lay it out and you tell them all of the great things that they did. Because why? We want them to replicate those great things. We want them to be able to do it again. Just like the example that I gave. That's great. I will help you with CPR until help arrives. We want them to be able to have that confidence of, hey, that was a perfect thing to say. I'm going to say that again. Especially when it's perfect. I want people to be able to share that and take it out to the floor and spread the word, because it's easy to pick up the bad things that people are saying and doing, unfortunately. All right. Now, Missy.
Okay, thank you. So the next method is our strength-based feedback. And I was really excited when we learned the method of strength-based feedback. And that's probably just because of my personality type. I'm kind of the glittery, happy-go-lucky kind of person. I like to be positive, and I like to mentor and to coach. And so while I have learned over the years how to give constructive feedback and do the hard part of being a supervisor and having those critical conversations with employees, I also like to be able to be positive and mentor. So when we were introduced to strength-based feedback, it really spoke to me because with the Q process, I liked the idea of not just pointing out those things that they could improve on, but pointing out the things that our employees that they do well, and to encourage them to keep doing those things well, and to having them leave a process knowing that we weren't just trying to find the things that they needed to improve on, but that we were also giving them some positive things that they were doing well. And so it was something I really enjoyed when we were introduced to this method. In the book that we talked about, The Feedback Fix, they tell of how this kind of came about. And it talks about a school in Garden City, Idaho, a charter school, where the kindergartners every year, they make greeting cards, and they take these greeting cards and they work on them all year long. And then they go ahead and at the end of the year, they produce them and they sell them kind of on the highway. And they use those greeting cards to give charity and funding to some of the reserves for animals and habitats in the area. And they tell of one specific classroom that they started at. One year they did butterflies, and one of the little boys in the classroom, he chose to have the Western tiger swallowtail, which is a pretty specific butterfly. It's a very big, beautiful, vibrant butterfly that's yellow and black. It has blue spot and orange spots that go down its tail. And it's really identifiable in that area. And so what they do is every Monday, the children bring their pictures out and they go around and they show their pictures. And each of the children give a little bit of feedback about the picture of how they feel like the child can improve, or their colleague can improve the picture. And then they go back and they work on it and they bring it back. And they talk about this process and how by the end of the year, this little boy's picture, with the little bit of feedback every Monday, by the end of the year, his picture was so perfect. It looked like this butterfly was real and could jump off the page. So when they made it into the card, it looked like a real portrait. And this is a kindergartner, and how it was non-threatening to these children at 5 years old to be able to give this type of feedback to each other, and be okay with it. And as I thought about that, I thought about if we could all give each other that kind of feedback in our everyday lives and not be threatened by it and be like, oh, that's great. Yeah, you're right. I could do it that way. How it would improve not just our jobs, but in our personal lives, and be able to help us improve in everything that we do. And so that's kind of where the strength-based feedback is based upon, is just saying, these are the areas you can improve upon, and this is how you can do it. But these are also the areas you're doing really well and they're perfect on. Keep doing those, because that's where you're going to build up your strengths. And so that's where it was based upon. The important thing when you do strength-based feedback is that the first thing you do when you go through the call is you're looking for all the things that your employee did right. You're not looking for those things. So the first time you listen to the call is you look for those skills, the talents, the things that they do right. Did they use a calm voice? Did they follow this process right? Did they, verify the address? So you're looking for those skills and talents that employee has, and you're going to pick that out. And then you're going to specifically write things to that employee about how they did that right. You're going to provide positive feedback about how that strength was specifically used. And you want to be specific, and you want to tell them why that was good, and you want to tell them that how they used it, and then you want to tell them that you want them to use that skill and that behavior again. The next thing you want to do is encourage them to maintain or improve that result, using it again and again, and using that as a strength, and to share that strength with others, and to use it in those types of calls again and again. So an example of this is you want to say, in this call, the caller was very hysterical. Using the caller's name, you got their attention away from the situation and to listen to you, and they were able to answer key points, and you were able to gather more information, keeping the scene safe, and the responders were able to have a better safe situation and get there more quickly. So you're able to identify certain things that they did, a task that they did that helped the call go more smoothly, help the situation be better, and why you want them to do that again. It helps them identify for themselves, oh, that I did do that. That really was good. And if I do it again, maybe I'll get the same result. And so you're trying to find those things for your employee that got good results and have them do that again. So you're building on those strengths that they have. Once you do that, you're going to go through, and then you're going to find those things that they can improve upon. And you're going to go back to those things that Leslie talked about in the beginning and do feed forward feedback. So you're still going to identify those strengths or identify those things, but you're going to give feed forward how we're going to improve that. So you're going to say something such as, on this call, you did not follow the address verification procedure, and you did not gather accurate location information. This led to an address error, and it caused a delay in getting the caller help. So moving forward, you need to have the caller repeat the address for you, and then you want to use the resources like your Annie Alley or Rapid SOS to ensure you get the address correct the first time. So you're going to identify what they did incorrectly. You're going to tell them how to do it correctly and how moving forward you want them to behave in the future. So you're just giving facts. You're not particularly telling the employee they did that their behavior, that they are wrong, but their behavior, and you're going to give them a way to improve for the next time. And so this is helping them see that you're not just pointing out the bad things, that you're pointing out the good things. And how Leslie and I like to do it is we like to put those negative things within the report, but then put all the positive and the strength-based feedback at the bottom of the report or at the top of the report all together, so that they were able to read all those good things that they did all together. So that they could kind of walk away feeling that, yes, I have some things to improve, but look at all the good things that I did as well. And we knew this was working when we would have employees come to us and say, when do I get my next Q? Or when our employees would get independent on their own, they would come to us and say, when do I get to have my first Q? When we had people that were dreading it, and then all of a sudden we had people asking us for Qs, we knew this was working. And we thought that that was really exciting for us, is because before we walk on the floor and people would hide from us. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, the Qs are on the floor, hide, I'm not here today, I'm sick. And all of a sudden we had people, like Leslie said, we'd walk out on the floor and they were, hey, can I ask you a question? Hey, can I ask you this? Or they were sending us calls saying, hey, can you listen to this? I'd like some feedback. So we knew that what we were doing and what we were saying was respected, but also they were longing to do better. And so it really helped our program, but also is to help our employees to do better and give that good customer service. It created a support system is what it did for them. So when you're writing that feedback, just make sure that you're being specific and accurate. And one of the things that's just kind of a general is to give 3 pieces of good feedback for every 1 piece of negative feedback. Now, being realistic. There were times, and there still are times, that you're going to find seriously that the only thing you know how to write back to them is you created a call and got it prepared for dispatch. End of story. I mean, there are times when that call, that's all you can find that was good in the call. There are just some of those calls that are just bad. And you have to really work with those employees. And there are times too when we have found that no matter how much corrective behavior we've given, we'll find that the same employee has the same negative behavior over and over again. And when those things happen, that is when we have taken that employee or that task and we've had to put them on a remediation or a training plan, or take that to the supervisor where that does have to go to some type of disciplinary, because we have been able to create a trend or a habit where we've done everything we can to provide the positive feedback, the negative, and the fast forward feedback, and they still can't correct the behavior. And so in those rare cases, those are when we have to move into training correction or move that and we work with our supervisors to go into disciplinary action. But also explain the incorrectly adding the impact. Always add an impact of what the error can do. So on an address error, always the impact, there's a delay so that the patient didn't get the help as quickly as needed. If there was poor customer service, that represents the agency as well as the dispatch center in a poor light. So always give the impact of the positive and the negative. On a positive, you did this great, and so the patient was able to get help more quickly. By doing that, it helps the employee remember why they want to do that behavior and why they want to repeat it or not repeat it. And then the last thing is to be very mindful when you're doing the QA process of the setting that you want to give for feedback. For a while there, like I said, Leslie and I, because we were doing accreditation and because our center was so large and there was just the 2 of us, we were pretty much day and night sitting in our offices doing Qs, and that's it, to meet the standard. And so we just relied on our employees to read the comments and to read the Qs and hope that they got something from them. And it was really tough because we were spending a lot of time trying to give this great feedback. And I was some days like, I don't even know if they're reading this. And am I spending a lot of time coming up with this good feedback and they don't even know what I'm saying. And so we had to try to make it a point to even just at least walk out on the floor and say, how are you doing? And hope that they understood or we could talk to them. But we got to a point where at least now we tried to go out and sit with them or talk to them and make sure that at least getting them and ask them if they have any questions. The other thing is that we learned is that when there's a critical call that needs to be gone over with them, make sure that it's in private. Make sure that you're able to take them off the floor and to make that time to go over it with them and to go over it with them as timely as possible so that it's not 2 or 3 weeks down the road that we can correct that behavior quickly. The other thing we found is that if it's a really good call, do it publicly. If you have time, just go out and sit with them, and in between calls, talk to them. We found that we'll go out and we'll start talking to them, and we'll even get a little animated, be like, oh my gosh, I listened to this call. Holy cow, that was amazing. That lady was crazy, and you were so amazing. And we'll find that some of the people will start scooting over and listening, and it'll become almost a group discussion. But it not only gets other people to hear what good behaviors were happening there, but it kind of gives that employee a pat on the back, and they feel kind of proud of themselves. And then the other employees want to create those behaviors because they want all that public recognition as well. So that has helped as well, is that some of them want that good public recognition. So they want to do good on their calls, and that improves the processes. So think of your settings and think of how to give that feedback. Maybe we have what's called a tree of gratitude. If somebody has done an amazing job, we have little flowers and stuff we could put on the tree, and make sure that we're letting people know when people are doing an outstanding job, and just find different ways to recognize these people for the great things that they're doing.
So our last concept that we're going to talk about is ask, tell, ask. And this we're taking from the medical field. They use it when they're training doctors and nurses with their preceptors. And when I found this has been heaven sent to when it comes to meeting with the person, with the employee in person. This is when this is used and when it works, and it kind of pulls in that RAP method. So the first thing you want to do is you want to ask the call taker or telecommunicator what went well. Miss, can you click or not?
Oh, I sure can. There we go.
Sorry. So you want to ask the telecommunicator for their perceptions. What do you think you did well? What do you, first of all, kind of thing. It's like I always start out with what did you do well in? So one of the things that I kind of came against a roadblock on this was I had a telecommunicator. We call them call takers, and I know it's supposed to be telecommunicators, but anyway. And I brought him in, and I'm like, so how do you feel about the call? What did you do well? And he's like, well, can I be honest with you? And I'm like, sure. I said, my office is Vegas. What goes on in here stays in here, right? Kind of thing. And so he's like, I feel like in the past, in my other employment, anytime I was asked that was so that I could say something that I thought they did well, and then that person squashed me down and say, no, you didn't really do that. And so that was like a learning curve for me. I was like, okay, well, how about I tell you what I think you did well? And that broke the ice with him. Now, when I bring him in, we can have that same conversation, and he knows that he can talk to me candidly up front, and that telling me what he did well, I'm not going to squash him down and say, no, that's not what I think, kind of thing. I so far have not had, knock on wood, because it might happen someday in my career, that somebody's going to tell me something that they think they did really well on and I can't agree with. And at that time, I'll have that conversation. But so far, it's the heavy lifting. It takes it off of me. So after I have this conversation about what they did well, and they tell me what they did well, then I go back and I tell them what I think that they did well, because sometimes they'll miss some things. It's amazing how we have a really hard time identifying what we did well sometimes, like especially when we're in that conversation with somebody and we're evaluating a performance. It's sometimes hard to be able to say, oh, I did that well. I did that well. Like I said, that negative stuff is easy peasy to pick out, right? So then after we have this conversation of here's what you did well, here's what you think you did well, here's what I think you did well, then I come to well, what area did you think you did less well in? I like to say it more like, well, what do you think you could improve? And kind of take out that little less well. What area can you improve in? Verbiage is everything sometimes, right? What areas do you think you can improve in? And this is when they'll tell everything. They'll pick up on everything they did, even things that I didn't notice in the call. I'll be like, oh, crap, I missed that, right? Kind of thing. And so they'll pick up all that. They do all that heavy lifting without you having to tell them. This same gentleman that I was talking about previously on this other one, before we even had brought him back, we started the call. Before I even started the call, he's like, I'm going to tell you right up front, I know I was a proverbial dick to this caller, and I won't do that again, but I want you to know I know that already. So it made that conversation simple, like, right? That just made my load lighter to be able to communicate them. So after you've asked them, then of course you click the next, Miss, which I've already kind of covered. Tell them your impressions and give examples. Make sure that they're non-judgmental, their observed behavior, and they're modifiable, right? You don't want to beat them down. They've already picked up on everything bad. You don't have to repeat it. You can be like, okay, do you need to know can I help you fix that? So that's come back to where you go back to the final ask. How can I help? Like, how can I help you fix this? I understand that you gave CPR for a child 1 to 8, and this baby was 11 months. How can I help you fix that? Hey, let me pull up APCO and let me show you where it is and maybe where you missed the step of where to go. And hey, do you know, if you realize while you're in the call and this happens, it's totally acceptable to get to the right spot, right? So that's when you can circle back around and have this final conversation, and then maybe set goals and come back through that refining process that we learned from Feed Forward. So the ask, tell, ask, and Missy, if you'll hit the final thing, is what are your thoughts? How can I help? Provide coaching, mentoring, and other assistance. And like I said, our offices, when we go in and we have conversations with our employees, they become Vegas. What goes on there stays in there. I don't tell other people hey, do you know what so-and-so told me? No, we are keep their confidence. We help them out. Sometimes they'll give me permission to share, like these examples that I've shared today. I've had that person's permission to be able to share that with other people. I don't share unless in case they don't want that information shared. So that kind of wraps us up to our final slide and brings it all together with Ben Franklin has this quote that's out there that is so applicable to quality assurance and training. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. So if you take all of these things that we've done today and roll them into your quality assurance, you can have that transfer rate and have that success with your employees and make them feel good about the role that they play in your organization. Because I'm not going to lie, and I think everybody on here will say amen, taking calls is the hardest job in a dispatch center. Like, dispatching is hard and it's a whole different ballgame, but being on that front line, taking those calls and listening to those horrific cries of our citizens is the hardest job in our center. And so if I can help them turn something negative into a positive and help them in the future make a different effect on that same kind of call, because we know that's going to happen, that is my goal in quality assurance. Missy, do you have anything you want to kind of wrap up with?
No, I'm great. Thank you so much for listening and being here. And hopefully we were able to share something that helped today.
So if you'll just go a couple slides, there's our information. We'll put that up for just a second, and then we'll put our reference page up too. This little picture is my cute granddaughter, Lena, and my niece, Rory, who are 13 years old, who sang our Spoonful of Positive for you today.
Very well done. Thank you both very much.
Questions?
Yes, there is one in here. Yes. So let me I'll go over this here, and it says, hey, why did you switch from the other vendor to APCO? Thank you for a very educational presentation.
For a lot of reasons. If you want to email personally, I can get more into detail and not to get into the weeds on it. However, it's been a good choice, and I liken the vendors of our protocol software like driving a car. You've got Ford, Mercedes, Lamborghini. They all get you to the same place, just in different comfort.
Very nice. I like that. If you could go back one slide just to have your information on there for just a few more moments. There you go. So for anyone who wants to learn any more, and for the person, I believe it was Christine in there who had asked the question, please email the both of them if you have any questions or anything. And let's see, can you ask them to share? Oh yeah, so this question must have come in as I was saying it, but it was just asking for you to share your emails again. So there, it's right there. And again, thank you so very much to the music, to to the whole theme, and just the entire session to begin with, because I do remember when I was in dispatch as well, and I would be taking a call, and I would know that I didn't say something like right away, and it was maybe the second thing that I asked or whatever, and I thought, oh man, this is gonna
Right.
be QA'd and I'm dead. I was always there was always those moments, but the way you explained everything, and to be able to put it all together and have people feel comfortable about it, that also, it builds more confidence in the person as well. And this is the feedback session. So thank you both for this. This has been great.
Thank you. Thank you for
so
having
much.
us.
So for everyone who is here, we are going to be moving to the next session, and that's going to be with Gary Hill, and his session is called "Is Your Training Better Than Doing the Dishes?" an interesting title for sure, but it's going to be an excellent one. So we will see you